Hey, brother, let me tell you something straight. We live in a world where everybody's loud. Loud online, loud in arguments, loud trying to prove their worth. People explain, overexplain, and sometimes even beg just to be noticed. But here's the truth most men never figure out. Real strength doesn't beg. Real strength doesn't chase. Real strength doesn't try to convince anyone. Because silence, when used with discipline, is not weakness. It's power. It's control. It's clarity. Most guys, when they feel rejected or ignored, they panic. They blow up her phone, send paragraph-long texts, or try to explain why they're different. But what they don't realize is every time they do that, they're handing over their power. They're saying, my peace depends on how you respond to me. And brother, that's not peace. That's prison. A man rooted in himself knows this. His dignity doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It simply walks away. Quietly, calmly. And that silence, that's what shakes people to their core. So today, let's break down 6 truths. 6 reasons why silence is a masculine superpower. And once you get this, you'll never look at rejection, disrespect, or being misunderstood the same way again. First truth, silence makes them feel your absence. Let me ask you something, bro. Have you ever cared about someone so much that the moment they pulled away, your stomach dropped? You felt that panic kick in, and your first instinct was, say something, fix this, don't let them slip away. So you text, you call, you explain again, and the more you chase, the further they drift. Sound familiar? That's the paradox nobody tells you. The more you talk, the less they listen. The more you explain, the less your words matter. And the more you chase, the faster they run. It's not because you're unworthy. It's because human nature works backwards. People don't value what chases them. They value what they fear losing. Now flip the script. Imagine this. Instead of sending that second text, instead of explaining yourself in a long paragraph, instead of chasing their attention, you go quiet. No reaction. No explanation. Just stillness. That's when the silence starts doing the work for you. Suddenly, they notice what's missing. Think about it. When the music stops at a party, everybody turns their head. When someone leaves a room, that's when you realize how much noise they were actually making. And it's the same in relationships. People often don't notice your presence until they're forced to feel your absence. I had this friend once who was the king of over-explaining. Anytime there was an argument or she acted cold, he'd sit there typing essays trying to make her understand his side. He thought if he just explained clearly enough, she'd finally get it. But nothing ever changed. In fact, she respected him less each time because his words turned into background noise. Then one day, something inside him snapped. He stopped. No long texts. No late-night explanations. No chasing. Just silence. And guess what happened? She reached out, not because he convinced her with logic or words, but because his silence forced her to sit with herself. It pulled her in, while his chasing had always pushed her away. That's the power of silence, my friend. It doesn't push, it pulls. It doesn't beg, it reminds. It forces people to sit with the space you leave behind and ask themselves questions they never had to ask before. Why isn't he reacting? Why doesn't he need me to stay? Did I take him for granted? And that's when the dynamic flips. Because silence isn't just quiet. It's presence. It's strength. It's the loudest thing you can say without opening your mouth. Second truth. Silence helps you hear yourself. Here's what most men do when they're hurting. They go outward. They call 5 different friends just to hear someone say, "It's going to be okay." They scroll endlessly on social media, drowning their thoughts in other people's lives. They fill the silence with noise because they're scared of what they might hear if they sit in it. But silence does the opposite. It brings you inward. It forces you to listen, not to her, not to the world, but to yourself. And when you do that, when you finally let the noise fade out, you start hearing the truths you've been avoiding. It's in those quiet hours that the thoughts creep in, "She never really respected me. I just didn't want to face it." Or, "I'm not actually angry she left. I'm angry I stayed too long." Or the hardest one, "I don't need closure. What I really need is peace. You don't hear those truths when you're explaining yourself over and over. You don't hear them when you're chasing her attention. You hear them when you go still, when you stop trying to convince the world and start being brutally honest with yourself. And here's why silence is discipline. It separates your emotions from your values. Because when you're hurt, your emotions scream. They scream, chase her, prove yourself. Don't let her go. Fix it before it's too late. But when you're silent, when you sit in that uncomfortable stillness, something softer whispers back. And that whisper says, protect your dignity. Hold your peace. Let her go if she doesn't see your worth. That whisper, brother, is where your real strength lives. It's not in the chasing. It's not in the explaining. It's in knowing that even in heartbreak, even in rejection, you can stand still. You can hear your own voice above the noise of fear. I'll tell you this. I knew a guy who, every time his girl got distant, he'd blow up his group chat. He'd call everyone asking, what do you think she meant? Do you think she's done? Should I text again? And all it did was feed his panic. But the day he decided not to reach for the phone, not to call anyone, not even her, that was the day he finally heard himself. And what he realized in that silence was this. He wasn't scared of losing her. He was scared of facing his own emptiness. And once he saw that, he started building himself instead of begging for her. That's why silence is a superpower. It doesn't just keep you from saying things you'll regret. It gives you the space to rediscover yourself. And once you've heard that whisper of self-respect, you'll never trade it again for the screams of desperation. Third truth, begging for closure is self-betrayal. Let's be honest, brother. Everyone craves closure. That final talk, that one explanation that ties the whole story together. We tell ourselves, if I could just hear the truth, if I could just sit down with her one last time, it would all make sense. But here's the harsh reality. If someone truly cared, you wouldn't have to beg for closure. They'd give it freely with honesty and respect. And if they don't, then your silence, not their words, is your closure. I've seen too many men get stuck in this trap. They waste weeks, even months, chasing that one last conversation. They rehearse what they'll say. They write long messages. They send just one more text, hoping this will be the time she finally explains. But do you know what happens? They end up pouring their heart out to someone who already made peace with hurting them. They end up explaining themselves to someone who checked out a long time ago. And every time they do, they give away a little more of their dignity. I knew a guy who couldn't let go of his ex. He begged her to meet, begged her to talk it out. Finally, she agreed. He went in hoping for answers. Do you know what she gave him? A shrug and a few half-hearted lines that only left him more broken. That's the reality of chasing closure. You don't walk out healed. You walk out emptier. Real closure isn't a text or a phone call or some coffee shop conversation where you try to fix the past. Real closure happens the moment you stop needing their words to heal you. It's when you look in the mirror and finally say, I don't need their explanation. I don't need their approval. I don't need their permission to move on. And the most powerful closure you can ever give yourself, it's silence. Saying goodbye without saying anything at all. Not out of spite, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Because when you stop chasing closure, you start building peace. So remember this. Every time you beg for answers from someone who already left, you're not searching for truth. You're betraying yourself. But when you let silence be your final word, that's when your healing really begins. Fourth truth, silence reveals what words hide. Here's the thing, brother. Words can be beautiful, but they can also be dangerous. People can say, I care about you, while their actions show the exact opposite. They can say, I'm sorry, and then repeat the same behavior a week later. Words can dress up a lie so well that you almost believe it. But silence never lies. When you stop talking, when you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, the truth finally comes to the surface. You start to see who actually values you, because silence strips away the performance. You see who checks in when you're quiet. You see who disappears when you stop giving. You see who gets frustrated when they can no longer pull a reaction out of you. That's reality. And it's clearer than any promise or apology. I had a friend once who gave people way too many chances. Every time someone hurt him, he listened to the same line, "I promise I'll do better." And because he wanted to believe it, he kept letting them back in. But one day, he decided to stop reaching out. No texts, no reminders, no energy spent keeping the connection alive. And that's when he saw their true colors. Some vanished completely, because they were only there as long as he was the one putting in effort. Some got defensive, accusing him of being cold, because they didn't like losing control of his attention. But the ones who really cared, they stepped forward on their own, without needing to be asked. That's the beauty of silence. It filters the fake from the real. Words can be manipulated. Promises can be broken. But how people respond to your silence, that's the truth. So don't be afraid to go quiet. Don't be afraid to pull back and watch. Because silence doesn't just protect your energy. It reveals who is genuine all along and who only love the sound of their own excuses. Fifth truth, not explaining yourself is confidence. Let's be real, bro. Being misunderstood stings. When someone twists your words, assumes the worst, or paints you as something you're not, your first instinct is to jump in and defend yourself. You want to shout, "That's not me. Let me explain." And I get it, it feels unfair. But here's the thing. Real confidence doesn't chase understanding. Real confidence doesn't beg people to see your worth. See, the man who refuses to overexplain isn't arrogant. He's free. He knows who he is. He knows his intentions are clean, his actions are aligned, and his worth doesn't need subtitles for people who are determined not to see it. That kind of peace is rare, but it's powerful. Of course, some people won't like it. Some will call you cold. Others will label you selfish. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. Losing people who never truly saw you is not a loss. That's alignment. Because when someone refuses to understand you, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the version of you they can no longer control. I had a friend once who always felt the need to defend himself. If someone accused him of something, he'd spend hours explaining. If a girl pulled away, he'd write long paragraphs about how much he cared, hoping she'd get it. But the more he explained, the less respect he got. Why? Because he wasn't seeking clarity. He was begging for permission. Then one day, he decided to stop explaining. If someone misunderstood him, so be it. If someone twisted his actions, let them. He knew his truth, and that was enough. At first, people pushed back. Some called him distant. Some said he changed. But over time, something interesting happened. The ones who really cared stuck around, because they didn't need explanations. They saw his consistency. They saw his actions. And that spoke louder than any words ever could. That's the essence of confidence, brother. It's not in proving yourself to everyone. It's in standing so rooted in your truth that misunderstanding doesn't shake you. Most people don't want to understand you anyway. They want to control how you're seen. And when you stop explaining, you stop playing their game. So remember this. Your silence in the face of misunderstanding isn't weakness. It's strength. It's you saying, "I don't need you to approve of me to know who I am." And that's the kind of confidence that no one can take away. Sixth truth, detachment in silence teaches a lesson. Brother, there's nothing more powerful than walking away quietly. Not with a long goodbye message. Not with drama. Not with a scene. Just stillness. Just silence. Because in that silence, you teach a lesson words could never carry. See, when you go silent, you don't give them the fight they expected. You don't give them the begging they were sure would come. You don't hand them the chance to keep proving their power over you. Instead, you leave them with the only thing most people can't handle, themselves, their own thoughts, their guilt, their memory of how you treated them. That's when the silence starts working. Because silence echoes in a way shouting never could. It makes them wonder, why didn't he react? Why didn't he fight for me? Did he stop caring? Was I never as important as I thought? And in that moment, the control they thought they had slips right through their hands. But here's the thing, not everyone will learn from it. Some people will shrug it off. Some will run to distractions. Some will pretend it doesn't matter. But that was never the point. The point wasn't to teach them. The point was to teach you. Because every time you detach in silence, you remind yourself of something crucial. You remind yourself that your peace doesn't need anyone else's permission. You remind yourself that not everyone deserves an explanation. You remind yourself that silence isn't just a weapon, it's healing. And listen, detachment isn't about not caring. It's not about shutting your heart off forever. It's about caring enough about yourself to stop bleeding for people who don't value you. That's why silence terrifies people. Because when you stop playing their game, they realize they've lost control. And that's the real lesson here. Not what they learn in your absence, but what you learn by choosing it. You learn that dignity beats desperation. You learn that peace is better than chaos. And you learn that sometimes the loudest thing you can ever say is nothing at all. So listen, brother. Silence isn't cold. It's clear. It's not ego. It's self-respect. It's not weakness. It's control. There will be moments where you'll want to react, to explain, to fight for your worth. But remember this. Every time you choose silence, you're choosing yourself. You're choosing your dignity. You're choosing peace. And in a world where everyone is desperate to be loud, your silence will always be remembered more than their noise. So let your silence be your final word. Not out of spite, not out of pride, but out of deep, unshakable self-respect.